welcome back to Hoist the Black Flag. We're on with Charles Johnson, who is a blogger at the wildly popular site Little Green Footballs. That's www.littlegreenfootballs.com/weblog.
Slightly bigger than ours, I think.
A little bit of a bigger blog than ours, yes.
So.
Hiya, folks.
How you doing?
How you doing, Charles? Great to have you on.
Good. How are you doing?
Right before we went out, when we were, did you notice that professional fill we did when we had to go early?
Yeah, congratulations on that.
Yeah,
that was
thank you.
excellent.
Yes, we're very happy about this. But we wanted to ask you, it's a good segue. You don't seem to like Europe very much.
No, actually, I love Europe. It's some Europeans that I have a problem with.
Right.
When you say some Europeans, 70%? Let's not quibble over percentages.
So what do you think of the no vote?
Well, you know, first of all, it's good regardless of the reasons for it. I think they voted against the EU Constitution probably for the wrong reasons. I think really it was kind of a reaction against the perception that it was going to spread globalization and American values and capitalism and all those bad, horrible things over in France. And everybody wanted to keep their 35-hour work week and 6-week vacations, and I think that was the basic reason.
Do you blame them? Let's face it, we're all capitalists and Republicans, but when they talk about that 35-hour work week and 6-week vacation, I got it.
It's not if it's mandatory.
There's siestas.
Oh, I know. It's very leisurely. But that's basically what it comes down to. But regardless of the reasons, I actually tried to read the darn thing. I think it's 400 plus pages, maybe close to 500, and I tried to read it and got quickly somnambulant. And it's the most incredible pile of bureaucracy you've ever tried to slog your way through. And so in the long run, it's probably better that they voted it down, even if it was for the wrong reason.
Right.
Because, I mean, there is, a big divergence in Europe and America between the idea of nationalism. I mean, they like to pretend they're not nationalistic, and I always say this is my little witticism, is that anti-Americanism is the jingoism of Europe. That they don't like to admit that they themselves have nationalistic pride, so they passive-aggressively state their national pride by just putting us down. But the French have a great deal of national pride. So do the British, so do the Scottish, so do the Germans.
Yeah,
but they don't feel comfortable quite saying that. So maybe rejecting the EU treaty in a way sort of brings them closer to us and to admitting that they are proud of who they are.
Right. Yeah, well, there is some of that too, I'm sure. It's really not doing well. The EU Constitution is probably, the problem is there's a certain cadre of elites in Europe who intend to just keep doing the vote over until it comes out the way they like it.
Right.
So and they can do that, of course, because they really aren't accountable to any electorate.
Right.
There's still a lot to go through, but it's a good thing in the long run. We'll have to see what they come up with. Who knows? They'll probably go back to the drawing board and come up with something that's 900 pages long.
Yeah, I'm not too hopeful about it. But switching gears from Europe to the Middle East a little bit, we had Daniel Pipes on last week, and we asked him if he was hopeful now that Arafat is dead that peace would be in sight, and he said he wasn't. What do you think?
Well, no, I'm not either. It's pretty hard if you really look at the actual facts on the ground, what's happening on a day-to-day basis there, to be very optimistic about that. Basically, Mahmoud Abbas is just Arafat in a nicer suit. Not weird, instead of a weird pseudo-military outfit. But he's basically the same thing. He's the head of Fatah, has a history as a Holocaust denier.
Right.
Basically, he's just not a nice guy, but he's pretending to be one. You always see pictures of him smiling. But honestly, I just posted something about, it was an opinion piece that was in the Jerusalem Post called Get Ready for the Hamas State, because unfortunately, if you give the vote to large portions of the Palestinian society, they're going to vote for Hamas.
Right.
Absolutely. I wanted to ask you a bit about your politics. Actually, I was warned by readers not to ask you this because they say it's well known, but I'm not sure it is well known by everybody. But you are a left-leaning independent as of September 10th, and your website was devoted not to politics at all, but to web design issues.
Basically right, yeah.
Has 9/11...
And I was no fan of George W. Bush either.
Right.
9/11 has obviously changed your interests and changed a lot of your attitudes, but how would you categorize yourself politically now? Do you actually feel any allegiance to a particular party, or are you just part of the pro-war against terrorism movement?
I always resist being categorized, and I'm not really comfortable with the term right-wing necessarily. Right. I'm also not necessarily comfortable with the term conservative, although that's better because at least it describes a philosophical outlook that makes sense,
I've actually heard little green football's conservative. I'm a little green football's conservative. I've heard people say that. And
I've seen guys with really cool leather biker jackets that say LGF minion. I'm not kidding.
Yeah, that's one of our readers designed those. Yeah, but yeah, I got to get on this gravy train. That's kind of actually you hit on something important there because I think there's a whole almost a movement, except that it's not really moving. It's just like a feeling that people who previously were socially kind of liberal, you might say, or at least laissez-faire about social issues, are now quite a bit more hawkish on the foreign policy and terrorism front, and I know I've talked to a lot of people who are that way.
I wanted to ask you this. This might be a little bit of a tricky question, but your left-leaning critics will slam you as being anti-Islam, but you read your site, and what you're doing mostly is just reposting news stories that may not portray Islam in the best light, but they are news stories, and they're news stories that other media outlets don't want to cover prominently.
Well, what I am is anti-radical Islam. That's what I am. That's what I always say because, honestly, I've known many Muslims who are wonderful people, and I don't have anything against the religion as a religion. It's just the way some people are practicing it in the world right now. And unfortunately, it's not as small a minority as mainstream media would like us to believe.
Right.
Yeah, and I was just going to ask that. I mean, this is not some tiny splinter group. This is, I don't want to say it's the majority, but this is a large number of foreign Muslims do believe in, you just have this great quote from Rafsanjani of Iran, where he was quoted saying, Islam always spoke with the sword in the hand, and I don't see why we have to change attitudes and talk and the way we talk with other civilizations.
Yeah, that was actually a representative of Rafsanjani.
Thank you. Oh, yeah, you're right. Supporting him.
But yeah, that was definitely, that's the language that they use all the time.
Okay.
We're going to go to break and come right back with Charles Johnson of Little Green Footballs. Maybe we'll take a caller or two after the break.
Love that music, Carol. Loving it more and more. I have visions of Iron Maiden posters on my bedroom wall. Anyway, we had a bunch of interesting questions to ask Charles, but briefing with him before this, he decided none of them were really that interesting. So we're going to go to John in Greville, who has a question for Charles, and maybe that'll be a little bit better. Can we get John on the line?
Yeah, actually, I was listening through the break, and I actually thought that the question about cyberstalkers was quite interesting.
Sounds very ominous.
I've asked that question to Captain Ed on the show, and in terms of cyberstalkers, how do you feel about those, and are they going to be the big danger in blogging for those people that are a little bit more
let's wrap it up. People are outside of his yard trying to strangle his pets.
Is that for me?
Yeah, John.
Yeah.
Yes, Charles.
It's become somewhat of a problem for me just because they're a nuisance, Unfortunately, I have some people who now go around and sign me up for every mailing list that they can possibly find on the internet, and spam. They put my name in spam lists, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Is there anything worse that intrudes into the real world? I mean, do they attempt to interfere with your business operations or anything like that?
Yeah, they have actually. Some of these people have posted they find out clients that I've worked for and try to have people call and harass them.
Wow.
And, they get pretty sleazy.
Are you saying that they're attempting to chill your right to dissent?
Oh, no, never. No, they're very tolerant and forgiving sorts.
Yes, they believe in free speech.
So Ace is right in being defensive about his anonymity?
Well, yeah, I would. Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I started out not anonymous, so if I had it to do over, who knows? I might not have publicized
That's
my
an
real name.
excellent closing thought. I'm right. Charles Johnson of Little Green Football is wrong. I love ending the show like that. Thanks for listening.
Great to
have you. Charles Johnson of Little Green Football.
Thanks a lot, guys.
One of the best blogs on the internet, of course.
That's right.
Thanks a lot for listening. This is Ace with my buddy Carol, and hopefully we'll see you next week on RightTalk.com.